So I heard there was a debate team at Ball State, which is about another 3 hours down the road, which is as far as my car could possibly go. And so I transferred to Ball State with the idea to join the debate team. And I pretty quickly discovered that I was a conservative by debating policy. And, I mean, I didn't know anything about anything. I am embarrassed to admit, my sophomore year, I remember sitting down at a computer and writing, what is the difference between Republicans and Democrats? I mean, that's where I started from. And, you know, the answer really wasn't easy to find because on everybody's website it says, oh, we want a responsible government, a great economy, and everything is hashed out in details about how you get those things. And so the only thing I really had to go on was the common sense that I had from working about a bazillion retail jobs. And, you know, it's kind of funny when Obama was talking about Republicans sipping on a Slurpee the other day. It's like, you know what? I do know a little about that because I worked at a 7-Eleven changing the Slurpee machines. And I bet you never have, Mr. Obama. And they're very messy, disgusting things. You never want to do it. So anyway, that was the experience I was coming to it with. And I remember the first round, it kind of dawned on me. We were debating something about how do we make education better. So the other team stands up and says, well, the schools need more money. So we stand up and say, how are you going to get that money? And they said, well, we're just going to tax video games because kids shouldn't be playing it, and we're going to repeal taxes for the top 1% of income earners. And I said, you don't even know these people. You're just going to take their money for this stupid plan that you don't even know will work? And, I mean, that was about how eloquent it was because I wasn't very good at debating then. But it was a long struggle. But just the fact that it seemed so arbitrary that you would take from one class to give to another to do something you wanted to do because you thought it was a good idea just seemed so wrong. And so that is slowly how I came around to learn about politics. And my focus has always been sort of on the fiscal issues and, you know, bureaucracy and government. And so as I was learning that in the political world, I was going through the absolute horrendous process of trying to get a student loan every semester to go to school. And I had to figure that out all on my own. My family was not involved. If I told you the story about that, it'd go long past dinner and we'd never get to lunch. So I will skip that part. But basically that meant going to college on a bunch of private loans and trying to navigate a system without your parents' tax forms or anything like that. And it was very difficult. And I could never figure out the paperwork. I could never go to class on time. I was always 2 weeks late, you know, waiting to see, praying, crossing my fingers by hook or by crook that the money would come through. And so one day I was standing there in line for the financial aid office and, you know, sick to my stomach with worry. Classes had already started at that point. And everyone standing in line ahead of me was getting checks. They were talking about how they were going to go shopping or they were going to go get new clothes. They're going to get a new computer. And I was just like, how does this work? You know, I'm working all these crazy hours at the library, waitressing, 7-Eleven. And it hit me that somehow that they were getting money to go shopping, but I couldn't get money for tuition because I didn't know how to navigate the system. And so I was really mad. Like all this time I have felt guilty that I wasn't working hard enough to be able to pay that bill. And then, you know, it just figured out that people were just getting loans. They weren't doing it. They were getting money to go shopping. And meanwhile, because the loans are being issued, the price of tuition kept going up and up and up. Doesn't that sound like the housing bubble? It's all kind of fake. So I put together some information because I knew how to do this now because I was on the debate team and said, I've got to tell people about this. You know, I thought I had some secret. And so I put together a pitch for like an op-ed, I guess it would have been at that time, and went to the school paper, and it was in the summer. I said, I have this great idea. I have all this information. No, I didn't even get to the pitch. Are you a journalism student? No. Communications, I'm on the debate team. No. So I said, boy, well, that's frustrating. You know, I think I would have been able to do this. And so around that time, I was talking to someone and complaining about, you know, I have this great idea to write something. And they said, well, why don't you? And I said, well, I don't know. And they said, well, you know, have you ever heard of the Leadership Institute or these places in Washington that might help some kids? I said, no. So I Googled it. And, you know, within 5 minutes, I was instant messaging with somebody from Leadership Institute, and they said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. If you could come out this weekend, you know, we can give you a plane ticket and a place to stay if you want to come to a workshop. I had never been on a plane before. And I was like, oh my gosh, this seems really nutty. Like, I'm going to get on a plane and go meet these people about somebody I just talked to on IM. So after I had fully convinced myself that this was a legitimate trip to take, and I still didn't even tell anybody because I thought it was so weird. I got on a plane and I went, and there I met, all these kids who seemed so much more savvy and smart than me because they had conservative papers. They were doing this thing. They had story ideas, and I was just like, wow, I want to do what they are doing. And so this was by then my senior year, going into my senior year. And so I walked out of there with the idea to start a website called bsylu.net, like a take on Ball State University, BSU. You can see why I thought that'd be funny. And so I walked out, and I said, I'm going to write about this. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to put it on the internet, and we'll see what happens. Boy, did it happen. So I picked a program to write about. I thought it was a waste that the school was bringing in the author of Fast Food Nation to speak for $20,000. So I said, boy, that's a big speaking fee. That's pretty much the cost of my 4 years of college. Actually, about. So I said, that's pretty outrageous. But that even wasn't the most offensive part of the program. The offensive part of the program is that they were bringing in people every week to say the same things that he was saying. And actually, the book, I read it, makes some great points, makes some bad ones. He definitely has a political agenda. But that really wasn't my complaint. It was that everyone was coming in and saying the exact same thing. They're all getting paid. This guy got a big fat contract for the school to buy the books, to give everyone the free book for free. So I just started writing about that. And then I found out this crazy side story that the professor who had coordinated this program, his name is Dr. Elvis, he had actually, I found out, had been caught trespassing on private property of a local farm trying to take pictures inside. And so he'd actually gone to court over it, and I just thought, wow, that's really strange. So I wrote a news story about it, and I thought it would be funny to make a wanted poster of Dr. Elvis and say, wanted, go to bsu.net to learn the real story. It was a little tabloidy, but hey, it was a great story, and I thought people should know about it. So I did that. And I mainly did that because I had a friend on campus. I could get no one to write with me. They thought I was nuts. But I had a friend who said, okay, if you want to make a poster to promote the website, I'll go around. I'll help you put up posters, Amanda. So I was like, okay, I need a poster. And so I went to the website, got a picture of him, blew it up black and white, put it all over. Started to get hits. So this is good, until I got a call from another one of my friends who has Dr. Elvis for a class, Amanda. Yeah, what's up, Joe? That professor you made a poster about is accusing you of a hate crime. Huh? They said, Amanda, you made him look like a terrorist. I said, what? I said, well, it's not my fault he has a beard. But, it was true. I had no intention of doing that at all. But then, all of a sudden, I'm getting accused of a hate crime in the paper by university officials. I could have never seen this one coming. And so I decided, well, I better go talk to the guy. And the best piece of advice I ever got from someone at LI says, Amanda, if you go in there and talk to him, you take a tape recorder and you write a story about it. Which was very good, because when I went in there, guy comes out, he's angry. He says, I'm going to tape record this. I was like, well, great, I am too. It's like fresh out of the package. I had to take the plastic off it. And he lays into me. I can't believe what you're doing. Who are you working for? I'm like, I wish I got a paycheck for this. And then it's funny, because when he really started yelling, he turned his off to really lean over and go into me. But mine was still running. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And so later that day, I learned how to put up an MP3 on my website. And after that, there was absolutely no chance of anyone ever writing with me again, because I kept getting in trouble. But it was great. And university officials debated ways that they could stop me, but since I wasn't living on campus and was using my home computer and paying for my own internet bill, there really wasn't anything they could do.